Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're making cinnamon roll biscuits. So we're going to start out with 2 cups of flour, and then to that we're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, about 3/4 teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of sugar, and then we're going to mix this up a little bit to get all of this mixed through, because we want to make sure that the baking soda, baking powder, and everything gets completely mixed through the flour, just so it doesn't clump up in one area. Now once you've gotten that mix, we're going to add about 1/4 cup of shortening, and we're going to add a stick of butter that has been cut up into basically a tablespoon's worth of each one. We want to make sure that you take that and break it up completely before you put it into the bowl, because that way it's easier to mix this all together when you're breaking it up then, rather than trying to do a whole stick at one time. So I use a fork to do this. I go through and break it up and make sure that the flour and all of the butter and shortening gets mixed together, and then you're going to add 1 cup of milk. Now, when you're going to mix this up, if it seems a little dry to you, you can add a little bit more milk. Sometimes you have to add a little bit more to make it work. But in this case, I think that 1 cup is plenty. If you need, I would just add a little bit more if you seem to be on the dry side. I don't mean pour a whole lot in there. I mean just like a couple of tablespoons at a time, so that way you get it completely mixed through, because this is going to bond together as you're mixing it and make it a little bit more sturdy and sticking together as you go through the whole thing. But just make sure you scrape your sides and your bottom of your bowl as you go, so that we pull everything in. Then we're going to take a baking pan. I line mine with aluminum foil, and I'm going to spray it with a nonstick cooking spray just to make sure nothing sticks to this. And we're going to preheat the oven to 425 degrees, because these are going to be in there for at least 20 to 25 minutes. Now we're going to take some kind of a cutting board or whatever you want to use, add some flour to the top of it so that way this doesn't stick, and we're going to put some flour on a rolling pin because we're going to need that in a minute. Now take your mixture you've already put together. We're going to turn this out onto the flour. Make sure that you get all this dough out and on there. We don't want to waste any of this, because it's going to actually turn out to be something really great. No need to waste it. Now, once you've gotten it all out onto your board, what we're going to do is take this and roll it a few times, just to try to actually make it into a shape that we want it into, but also to make sure that everything is pressed pretty sturdily together, because what we're going to do eventually is cut this to roll it up for the cinnamon roll biscuits. So press it out by hand, put a little flour on top of it before you press it, just to make sure it doesn't stick to your hand. We want to make sure it isn't sticking to the board, your hand, or to the rolling pin. And then just go ahead and roll it out. I do this a couple of times just to get it to a consistency that I want it as far as thickness and everything, but I try to make it kind of in the shape of a rectangle. This does not always happen, but it helps to do it a couple of times just to make sure that it's completely rolled out. Now, once you get this completely rolled out and you're ready to go with it, you're going to take some butter and soften it, probably in your microwave, and then you're going to use enough to actually spread over the entire surface of what you've rolled out as far as your dough is concerned. So take a spoon, spoon it out onto there, and just smear it all around it until you get it completely coated. It doesn't have to be really thick, but it needs to be an even coating to make sure that all of the stuff we're going to put on top of this will be pressed in and stick to it. So just spread it around, work your way from side to side, top to bottom, and make sure that you smear it out. As you can see, mine is not overly thick, but there is a decent amount of butter on top of this. So depending on how much you roll this out, it might be you need more or less butter. It's just going to have to be something you eyeball. Now once you're done with that, we are going to add some cinnamon sugar to the inside of this. So basically I have about 1/4 cup of this, and I'm going to work my way all around. You want to make sure that the whole surface gets a good coating of this. Wherever there's butter, there needs to be the cinnamon sugar. And use as much as you need to. If you can't use all of 1/4 cup, don't use it all. Just use as much as you can till you get an even coating like this. And then we're going to add some brown sugar. Now as you put the brown sugar on, you're going to press it down and press it into what's already there, because the butter is going to work to hold these in place. So work your way across all of the top of this and make sure that you get this evenly spread out everywhere. And as I said, as you go, press it down so that way it works its way in and the butter moves in between all of the seasonings you're putting on top of it, because between the cinnamon sugar and then the brown sugar, you want them to kind of stay in place when you're getting ready to roll this. Now what I do with these is I use a pizza cutter and I roll it down from the top to the bottom, and then I roll that piece up once it's cut off. So I mean, we're talking over 1 inch wide here on these, and then you just take it and roll it with your fingers until you get it completely up to the top. Then flip it over and then pinch the part that sticks off from where the edge was. So you're going to do this repeatedly until you use up all of this. And it's pretty easy to keep this stuff in the center of it, as far as like the brown sugar and the cinnamon sugar and everything. They stay in place because the butter's holding it in. But just make sure you pinch that edge, and that way this should stay together when it goes in the oven. As I said before, you're going to preheat that oven to 425 degrees at least, and then you're going to leave these in there for around 20 to 25 minutes. You might want to eyeball it. Some people's ovens are hotter than others. And when you get them on your pan, they're going to look something like this before they go in, and they're ready to go to the oven. Now, while they're in the oven and getting ready to come out, you are going to take some icing, which I use cream cheese icing. And you don't need a whole lot of this, maybe 1/4 cup, and then nuke it for just a few seconds until it's soft and drippy. And then we're going to actually pour this over top of the cinnamon rolls. And just go one at a time until you've added some on. Now that they're warm, they're going to absorb some of this. You might have to come back and add some later. I would let them cool for a few seconds before you add this on. You know, you don't want to just come straight from the oven and then add this on top. But just keep going until you use up the icing that you've nuked, and then you're going to have enough probably to go for all of these if you had about 1/4 cup. And when you are done, they look something like this, and they are amazing, and it's a great treat to have. If you like this video or any others I made, please like and subscribe. And if you'd like to check out my cookbook, which is available on Amazon and bookstores worldwide, have a great day.